Hi everyone, this is Nancy. I have a process video coming up shortly. I just wanted to share the planner that I'm using for this creative planner project. This is a hemlock and oak undated planner. Originally, I bought it to be our family planner, my daily planner, but it really didn't work out. It kind of drove me nuts that it's this book-bound type of planner, which I saw when I bought it, and I bought it anyway, and I should know that I need discs. I need to be able to take pages in and out of my functional daily planner, which is not creative in any way, so I'm not going to share that. However, I have been seeing so many creative planners on YouTube and on Instagram, and I was thinking about how I could do this project in a way that fits me and my style. So I decided to repurpose this planner. It's a beautiful planner, super high quality, beautiful paper. I love it. So I thought that, let me just open this up. On these weekly spreads, I'm going to use this to document small things, small wins and fails, weather, what we had for dinner, quotes, maybe some local news, those tiny little things that don't always make it into my traveler's notebook. I thought that would be a fun, creative exercise. And this is going to be totally unplanned. I want to make it as stress-free as possible and just like fun, creative play. So I'm going to be using a lot of stamps because I really need to use my stamp collection more. And I'm going to stick with flat embellishments. I'm not going to go nuts here. So it's going to be very basic washi, stamps, stickers, rub-ons. That's about it. Zero dimension, because I also plan, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but I'm going to try to use my handwriting. I tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist, if you couldn't tell. And so sometimes the imperfect nature of writing gives me a hard time, but I'm trying to break out of that, so maybe that'll help too. So I have pulled out some great stamps. I think I'll use these over and over. These numbers by Kerri Bradford I love and use them all the time. I think they're going to be perfect for this. The month stamps from Studio Calico. Anything that In a Creative Bubble makes, I usually buy. Love her. What else do I have? And I have, these from Ellie Studio. I've been using these quite a bit in my traveler's notebook. I've chosen 3 washi tapes. So I guess this is where my color scheme is going to come from. So it's blue, blue, or blue. So we'll see what I choose and how the process goes. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and one more thing. I'll probably be doing 2 of these a month, but most of my regular content is going to focus on the traveler's notebook, just so you know. All right, let's get started with the making. Let's start out with this double-digit stamp from Kerri Bradford Studios in a medium size. I love this stamp. I'm using it all the time in my traveler's notebook, and I thought it would be perfect for adding in the date to my planner. I'm using a really pale gray ink, which I've had in my stash for a really long time, and it is a dye ink, and it does not bleed through these pages, which I really love. There's a little bit of ghosting, but very minimal. Oh, also, I forgot to mention in my intro that this project is inspired by Julie of Plan to Create from here on YouTube. I will link her below, but she's doing something similar in the same planner, except her style is completely different from mine. It's minimal and it's beautiful. I would check it out. So she's the one that really gave me the idea. I'm using washing tape at the bottom. This is where all my colors are going to come from because I'm going to keep this as a project that I want to get done quickly on a weekly basis. I don't want to have to choose a color scheme every week. So all I'm going to use to dictate my color palette basically is pick a washi tape from my stash that I love. I have a lot of blue washi tape. So this one with the navy and aqua is my choice for this week. So the first thing documented is my son's school went back to virtual learning. I didn't do any documenting on this so far, so that's why I chose to put it in my creative planner. The second thing is books. This is also a stamp by Kerri Bradford that I love. It's brand new. I read a ton. And so this is where I'm going to keep track of when I started books and finish them sometimes. I do have a separate reading traveler's notebook, and I'll have a video on that at a later time because I'm still kind of figuring out how that's going to be laid out. But I will be documenting here as well. Now, in order to fill in that book cover, I'm using a pigment ink. So these are my turquoise pigment inks. So the one on the bottom is very light. I think it's because my pad is probably really dry. And so I'm adding and mixing two colors, a lighter and a medium tone. Pigment ink is something that you don't see very much anymore. Years ago, when I was a card maker, still have a huge stash of pigment inks. I don't think they even manufacture them very much anymore. They are a little more difficult to use. I'm just accustomed to them, so I don't find it as hard, but it does have a learning curve. And I did heat set it before I closed this book because it's a nice creamy consistency, but it also tends to transfer to pages, especially if you close a book without using a heat gun or letting it dry at least, I would say, a day or two if you're going to leave it open. Food is something that I'm probably going to consistently add. I think it'll be fun to look back at what we ate at different stages of our lives. So right now we're at home always. And so I do a ton of cooking. And that's just something that's a little bit different from any other year. And hopefully into 2022, our lives will get back to their regular routine, I hope. And that'll change. I'm using my own handwriting here. So I went back and forth on this a bit. I was going to type it out and on clear label paper and just stick it in because then I could get it quote unquote perfect. But I have some serious struggles with perfectionism, and I'm trying to work on getting over that because it limits me so much. So I decided to use my handwriting. That's like a big leap for me. These stamps, the big sock stamp from Kelly Parkey, I love that whole set because most stamps are so positive, which is great. And that's where we live most of our lives, right? But not everything is best day ever. So I'm glad to have that option. These are rub-ons. I found these online. I will link them below. I found them on an Etsy shop. They are by a Japanese manufacturer. I love Japanese stationery. And I thought this would be good. It had the navy and the aqua that I was looking for in my stash. They're nice and flat, and I like that they look almost like if they were printed on the page. Different from a sticker. I'm gonna add a little bit more stamping to finish out the row. More books, more reading. And I do pay attention. I'm not really planning each row ahead of time. I'm just looking at what I did and sort of try to balance out. So the big circle stamp underneath the socks, needed some balancing, which is why I used the stack of books on the right. So I'm trying to balance color as well. And if you look on the left side, there's sort of punches of color and they almost make a triangle. So the book and the little square, that's a die cut, and the rub-on, I'm paying attention to that as I go row by row. Netflix, this is also Paperperson shop. I'll probably use that quite a bit because I binge watch while I create. I guess it's more closer to binge listening. The black ink is VersaFine. That is my favorite waterproof ink. I think that it gives the best crisp image when stamping. The only thing I don't like about it is that this is an older stamp pad. I've had this for probably 2 years. They last quite a long time. It's hinged, and I hate that. I bought a new one, and it does not have the hinge, but I haven't opened it yet. I'm also sprinkling in the handwriting here and there. On the row, the Wednesday row under the 12, there's very little handwriting, so I added a lot more on Thursday to sort of balance that out. Oh yes, this day. This was a difficult day. My son was exposed to COVID at school, and that sort of sent us into a little bit of a tailspin. My son is diabetic. He has type 1 diabetes, and so to say that that complicates everything is an understatement. So I didn't write much this day because that took up our whole day. Sort of being shocked that he had been exposed the week before, and then it looks like we had pizza for dinner because that's probably all I could handle. More rub-ons. That's from the same sheet. I love this little house. Even though it didn't have the green and the blue, it's neutral enough. I love this I'm Feeling stamp. I've had it for a very, very long time. I rarely use it, but it's perfect for these rows. I think the rows are 1.5 inches wide, which is great because it gives me enough room to use a lot of my stamps, which was the point of the entire project in some ways. And again, I was trying to balance that. The reason that I chose that Let's Stay In and how bold it is because it offset the other two giant stamps, the sucks and the pizza. I have a daily planner that I reflect back on to sort of fill in appointments and where we shopped and what we did on the days of the week, so that when I sit down at the end of the week to create this spread, I kind of have a framework to go from. That also cuts down on the time. Now here I'm using my final rub-on. I knew I needed a last bit of color because when you looked around, I hadn't used very much of the navy, so I needed a little more navy in that little lantern. This rub-on is a little long, but it's fine because you can cut them really easily. Just have to be careful when peeling them off. And they sell a tool, but I use I think that's the back of my X-Acto knife that I use, just to rub it in place. And then I just snip off the little bit. And I'm going to add one more shape, a little tiny bit of color because there's so much black here. And I have these little vellum dots that I got on Amazon. I'll link those below as well. And I'm just gonna spread them around the page. My original thought was to use them for appointments, and I will in the future, and I did on this layout as well. Now, after filming, I did go back and I wanted a little bit more balance. That very first column, the week of column, was completely blank and it was throwing me off a bit. So I added the month stamp, that's from Calico. I added the year in a pale gray, and then one of my favorite stamps is the month stamp at the top that I found on Amazon, and I will link that below. That gave me the balance that I was seeking. Now for stats, this page took 1 hour and 5 minutes, which is great for me. I could definitely spare 1 hour and 5 minutes to pull one of these together every week. 2 key things though to get it done in that amount of time. The framework was already set out for me. I just went to my planner. I picked out 3 to 4 things from each day, so I knew what my subjects were going to be. I went through my stamp stash and grabbed stamps that would fit those stories. And having the color scheme picked out for me also was great, because then I didn't go digging around in all my stuff. I limited the amount of products that I used. I really enjoyed this. I hope you did too. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you did. And thank you so much for watching. Leave me comments. I'd love to hear from you. Bye.